All right, let me ask you something. What if a philosopher's warning from way back in the 19th century could perfectly explain the power your phone has over you right now? It sounds kind of crazy, right? Well, we're going to connect those exact dots, and what we find says a whole lot about where we're all looking for meaning these days.
So, before we really get into it, just take a second and think about your day. I mean, really think about it. The news you scrolled through, that thing you just bought online, maybe even who you decided to text back. Who or what was really calling the shots there?
Okay, so here's the game plan. We're starting with that big warning from Nietzsche. Then we'll look at the new gods that showed up afterward. After that, we're diving deep into the biggest one of all, the algorithm. And we'll finish up with a really interesting solution that kind of flips the whole thing around.
All right, so to really get a grip on our digital lives, we've got to go back in time. Back to the moment when the whole foundation of meaning in the West really started to shake. This is where it all kicks off.
You've probably heard that famous line from the philosopher Nietzsche, right? God is dead. But here's the thing everyone gets wrong. He wasn't throwing a party. Not at all. He was freaking out. He was basically sounding this huge alarm because he saw that the main pillar holding up Western morality and meaning was just crumbling. And that was leaving behind this massive, terrifying void.
And it turns out, we humans, we just can't handle a vacuum. We hate an empty space, especially when it comes to meaning. So losing that sort of divine compass, it didn't magically make everyone free. Nope. Instead, it kicked off this desperate, frantic scramble to find something, anything really, to fill that massive hole.
Which leads to a really cool question, right? Imagine for a second, what would Nietzsche, the guy who saw all this coming, think if he was dropped right into our world today? A world just swimming in technology.
Well, he might look around at all our screens and our data and say something like this: I didn't kill God. I helped you replace him with harsher, colder-hearted gods. And that's the real gut punch, isn't it? The deep irony he saw coming a mile away is that these new gods we created for ourselves are way more calculating and honestly a lot less forgiving than the one we thought we were escaping.
So what exactly are these harsher, colder-hearted gods he's talking about? Well, that brings us to the next part, the new lineup of powers that jumped in to take God's place.
See, looking for something to believe in, we basically started worshiping systems that we ourselves built. We put our faith in the all-powerful market, in the absolute control of the state, in the black and white certainty of ideology, and of course the big one today, the seemingly all-knowing power of technology.
And what's really wild is when you start to look at the structure of it all, it looks strangely familiar. It's like the priest who interpreted the word of God, that's the engineer writing the code now. The cross that people look to for guidance, well, that's the glowing screen we all carry in our pockets. And the sacred ritual of the Mass, that's been replaced by the invisible, all-powerful algorithm.
And that last one, the algorithm, yeah, that one has become the top dog. It's the most powerful, most widespread new god we've got. It's the one we serve every single day, whether we realize it or not. In fact, you could even call it a new religion, Algorithmism. Right? It's this new kind of belief system where our ultimate faith isn't in some divine plan, but in raw computational power. We've decided that the math, the equations, they know better than we do.
I mean, just think about it for a second. We've handed over so much of our free will to these cold, hard calculations. They literally decide what news pops up on your feed, what you should buy, who you should date, maybe even what job you should take. We are actively outsourcing our own lives to a machine that we created.
Okay, but this is where the whole thing takes a really interesting twist. Because according to the source material for this, the problem isn't that we're looking for a higher power. No, the real problem is the kind of thing we keep finding.
So the idea here is that our desire to look for something bigger than ourselves isn't the issue. Apparently, humans have this built-in natural inclination to search for a creator. It's a concept called fitra. You can think of it like an internal compass we're all born with. The tragedy isn't that we have the compass. It's that we've been letting all these other forces hijack it and point it in the wrong direction, toward fake gods.
And this is the key. We don't end up worshiping the real thing. We end up worshiping distorted versions. Like a version of God that's been packaged by clerics to keep their power. Or one that's been twisted by politicians to serve an agenda. Or maybe worst of all, a God we just invent for ourselves to make us feel better about what we want to do anyway.
So, if all these things we're worshiping are just distortions, what's the actual solution? Well, this last section presents a really powerful way to rethink our entire place in the universe.
The central idea is pretty profound. It says that a connection to a true God, or an absolute truth, isn't supposed to enslave you. It's supposed to do the exact opposite. It's supposed to be the thing that sets you free from having to worship all those smaller man-made things, like the market, or a political party, or yes, even the algorithm. And this all leads to this incredible concept called Khalifa, which basically means stewardship. And the idea is that our whole purpose here isn't to be a mindless drone or a cog in anybody's machine, whether it's an ideology or an algorithm. No, our job is to be responsible caretakers, stewards, who've been given the task of looking after the world with justice and knowledge.
So really, this boils down to a fundamental choice that every single one of us has to make. Are we going to be a passive follower, just another cog in the machine? Or are we going to be an active creator, someone entrusted with genuine freedom and all the responsibility that comes with it?
And that's really the big takeaway here. The ultimate freedom, real personal sovereignty, doesn't come from just rejecting everything. It comes from embracing a sense of responsibility to a higher truth, one that's bigger than any earthly power. And yeah, that includes the almighty algorithm.
Which leaves us with one last big question that you have to answer for yourself. In this world we live in now, which one are you going to be? A slave to the algorithm or a steward on Earth?